Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're doing something a bit different, but honestly, completely fascinating. We're going to dive into a rigorous, completely serious academic deconstruction of, well, what might actually be the most chaotic, avant-garde piece of automated literature of our time. It's this highly specific, deeply unsettling transcript pulled from a 25-minute YouTube compilation of the animated insect show Minuscule. The specific episode? Insect High Velocity. And trust me, when I first looked at this data, I realized the phrase high velocity doesn't even begin to cover the absolute linguistic acceleration we're about to witness.
Okay, ready? Here we go. Heat, what the fuck, hey? Heat up here. Heat. What did you think? Where? Heat up here. Heat. Oh yeah, dip. Heat up here. Yeah, heat up here. Heat.
Okay, take a breath. I know. That was a lot to take in at once. But to truly understand this masterpiece, we're going to break it down systematically. First, we'll look at the raw transcript data. Second, the dominance of heat. Third, the existential anomalies. Fourth, establishing spatial awareness. And finally, the final resolution.
All right, let's just dive right into Section 1, the raw transcript data, sourcing directly from the frenetic world of Minuscule.
Before we can even start to interpret the meaning here, we absolutely have to establish our parameters. So our entire data set consists of this incredibly tight sequence. We're talking a grand total of just 67 words. But notice the core vocabulary here. It's remarkably sparse. We have exactly 14 unique words attempting to convey what is essentially an absolute emotional roller coaster. Let's look at them. Heat, what the fuck, hey, up, here, did you think, where, oh yeah, dip. That is the entire palette this automated author is painting with. It's minimalist, it's totally brutalist, and honestly, it's highly efficient.
Moving on, to really comprehend this avant-garde narrative, we need to shift to Section 2, the dominance of heat, and establish the baseline. 67. I really want you to just keep this number in your mind. 67 words total. It's an incredibly compact space for an entire existential crisis to unfold. And yet, this tiny little ecosystem of text holds this overwhelming, dominating force. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer statistical weight of our primary variable. Look at how heavily skewed this ratio is. The word heat isn't just some recurring theme in this transcript. It is the absolute foundation of this reality. Out of the 67 total words, 47 of them are literally just the word heat. So what does this all mean? Well, it represents an unrelenting baseline state of existence. In this high-velocity insect world, the default setting is simply heat. Think of it as the rhythmic drone of wings, the friction of the air, the constant pulsing drumbeat of life that's just moving way too fast. But hey, a baseline is really only as interesting as the things that break it, right? So that brings us to Section 3, the existential anomalies, and those sudden disruptions.
Let's try to isolate this chaos a bit so you can really see it. Over on the left side, you have the hypnotic repetition, right? That comfortable, constant hum of the baseline. Heat. You're kind of lulled into this sense of security. And then, shattering the illusion on the right, this violent existential break suddenly hits us. The text just unexpectedly demands to know what the fuck, hey, and what did you think where. It's completely unprompted. It is this sudden spike of intense, piercing self-awareness right in the middle of a high-speed flight.
Let's actually define this academically for a second. We're categorizing these outbursts as anomalies. And an anomaly, in the context of our specific text here, is a sudden, jarring deviation from the standard linguistic baseline. It's being used here to express extreme confusion amidst high-velocity movement. I mean, just think about the poor insect experiencing this. They're moving at absolute top speed, surrounded by the endless hum of heat, and suddenly, boom, consciousness kicks in. These sharp, aggressive questions cut entirely through that rhythmic drone. It is literally the linguistic equivalent of hitting a windshield at 80 miles an hour. Okay, so following these intense moments of panic, the subject attempts to literally ground itself. Or actually, scratch that, it's more like elevate itself. This brings us to Section 4, establishing spatial awareness, and the vertical motif. Whenever the existential dread peaks, the transcript frantically attempts to orient itself in physical space. We see this recurring motif of verticality acting as a sort of desperate anchor. The phrase up here happens exactly 4 times. First, following a sequence of 15 heats, then right after the deeply confusing "what did you think where" anomaly. It pops up again after a bizarre moment of acceptance, and then finally serves as the ultimate spatial resolution. The subject is desperately trying to verify its location, like, where am I? Okay, I am up here.
And this brilliantly illustrates the rhythm of the entire piece. You've got the tall, imposing blocks of those heat sequences dominating the space. Then you see the short, sharp spikes of the existential breaks. But cutting through all of it, pacing the whole thing out like a metronome, are the spatial anchors, the up here, recurring at these medium, steady intervals. It creates this fascinating, pulsating sense of upward movement. The subject is confused, it's panicked, but it's continuously ascending.
So where does this high-velocity, heat-filled, existential ascent finally lead us? Well, that brings us to our fifth and final section, the final resolution, acceptance, and the dip.
Oh yeah, dip. Yeah. After all those frantic heats, after the aggressive what the fuck hey, after all that desperate anchoring of up here, the confusion just gives way to this incredibly bizarre, entirely laid-back form of acceptance. The panic simply evaporates. The subject acknowledges its reality with a simple "oh yeah," and executes a maneuver, the dip. It resolves the earlier existential dread with this sudden, totally unbothered shift in attitude. Honestly, it's almost profound. Look at how this actually builds into a complete narrative arc. Over just 67 words, we travel through 4 distinct emotional phases. Phase 1 is the baseline, establishing the heat. Phase 2 is the confusion, that sudden burst of self-awareness. Phase 3 is the ascent, the frantic need to verify location with "up here." And finally, Phase 4, the resolution, the absolute chill acceptance of, "oh yeah, dip." It's a perfect character arc, condensed into literally a fraction of a second of automated audio processing. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope you keep looking for the hidden structures in the chaos around you. Because as we look back at this text, we're really left with one final, undeniable question. Is this simply a glitch in automated YouTube captioning? Just a total failure of a machine trying to decipher the buzzing of animated bugs? Or is it possible that in its complete failure to transcribe human language, the algorithm accidentally stumbled upon the actual raw poetry of a bug flying way, way too fast? Something to think about.